You shouldn't trust your perceptions until you see the difference between seeing and perceiving. Seeing is direct. I see what's there. Perception is indirect. I see what's there, it gets processed in my brain, and that's what I see. That's a perception. Okay? So there's a lot of perceptual illusions. So perceptions are dangerous because they're not reality, they're not true, they're interpretations. That's why seeing is talked about as the experience of being awake. When you're awake, you're seeing. You're not seeing until you wake up, because the only thing you're seeing is what you think, isn't it? That's only, when you look at something, what you're seeing is what you think you see, isn't it? So you're not seeing yet, you're seeing what you think you see. If you look at a tree, you're looking at what you think you see, called the tree, isn't it? That, if I ask you, what are you looking at, you'll tell me it's a tree, right? That's what you're seeing, that's a perception, okay? If you look at it without the perception, and I ask you what you see, your answer is, I don't know. And you can actually look at what's called the tree and see what it is, because it's not a tree. If you see what it is, you're not seeing a tree anymore. You don't know what you're seeing. You're actually seeing what you're looking at. You're not seeing an interpretation of it. Once you get conditioned, once you get language, right? Once you get words for everything, you see the words. You don't see the thing anymore. You see the words. So when you wake up, you have a different experience of the world because you're seeing now. What you're seeing is raw material. What you're seeing is interesting and exciting because you don't know anymore. And because you don't know, it's possible for you to discover things. It's possible for you to see things newly that you were looking at before and you thought you saw, including people. You know, when you wake up, you look at people that you have been, you may look at somebody that you've known all your life and you see them completely different than you did up until that point, because you were only seeing your conditioned perception of them. You weren't seeing them. It's a different experience. It begins to happen when you get to a point in meditation where your conditioning starts to loosen up enough, right, that you start having input that's unconditioned, so that you can experience being outside, for example, in a situation that you've been in hundreds of times before. In an ordinary, everyday situation, you walk out of your house, you've walked out of your house to get in your car hundreds of times, right? And all of a sudden, you can be in that situation and realize that you have never seen the world. You've never looked at the sky and really seen it. You've never looked at, the trees and the flowers and really seen them. You've just seen your interpretation of what you were looking at. And when you see it, when you actually see it, it comes alive. It's alive. It's not a memory. When you're seeing it as a memory, when you're seeing it as an interpretation, it's a memory. When you're actually seeing it, it's alive. It's alive. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so.
Don't think about it. Don't think about it. You'll get it if you just stay in the practice. If you stay in the practice and you continue to follow the teachings with an understanding, that this is real, this is true. That's why at the end of the Heart Sutra, why would they say that? At the end of the Heart Sutra, they say this is true, not false. This is real, not false. Why would they say that? Because they know that in the state of mind that most people are in, they have to say that. They have to make it clear. They have to say, this is real. This is not a belief. This is not just a concept. This is what is being said in the Heart Sutra is real. It's pointing to something that's actually real. And that's why they say in the end of the Heart Sutra that this is real, this is true, not false. Because they want you to understand you need to make contact with the truth if you're going to experience a life worth living. You need to make contact with the truth if you're going to see things as they actually are. And if you don't see things as they actually are, your whole life is a dream. If you want to wake up, the only possibility for waking up is to wake up from what you're not. The only possibility for waking up is to wake up from what you're not. Why? Because when you're experiencing being what you're not, you're dreaming, aren't you? Isn't that a dream? If it's not real, it's a dream, right? So that's what the wake up is. You're waking up from what you're not. You're waking up from a dream. You're waking up from something that's not happening. And that's why a lot of the teachings will make a comparison to the dreaming that we do at night when we sleep, because it's literally the same thing. You know, you don't have any problem when you wake up in the morning knowing that what was happening last night wasn't real. You don't have any problem with that, right? But if I tell you this isn't real, that's different, right? Well, this is different than that, right? Because there's 8 billion people in this dream, and this dream keeps coming back. I keep waking up into it over and over again, right? That dream keeps changing dramatically. Well, that may be true, but it doesn't change the essence of the situation, which is that in both cases they're a dream. They're a dream because the character that you take yourself to be doesn't actually exist. And in order for you to continue to be that character, you have to continue to manifest the idea that it's real when it's not. You have to continue to manifest that. That's what the thought activity is all about. The thought process is about keeping the existence of the personality, maintaining it and keeping it in existence. Thinking is about maintaining the personality and keeping it in existence. Why? Because without the thought activity, how do you know it's real? Without the thought activity, how do you know it exists? How do you know you exist as a personality without thinking? Does anybody have an answer? How do you know your personality without thinking? Because without thinking, there is no personality. Without thinking, nothing's happening. When you're in a state of being, when you're in a state of being, one of the reasons that it's possible to relax at a level deeper than any other time is because there's nothing happening. When you're in a state of being, when there's no thought occurring, right? This is one of the reasons that people get scared when they practice meditation, that fear comes up because they're afraid to let go of thinking, because if I let go of thinking and nothing's happening, I might disappear. Maybe I never existed in the first place. If nothing's happening, maybe I'm not happening. I don't want to find that out. But you can relax, because if you find that out, what you will find is that who you thought you were never was happening, and who you really are was always happening. So you can't get out. You can't do anything about it. You can't stop being the awareness. Try it. Stop being aware right now. Stop. You can't do anything about it. You can't do it because it's real. It's not being produced by thought. It's actually occurring. And this is real life. This is the life that's possible and the life that's available through these teachings and practices. But since we've spent so many years practicing being stupid and ignorant and being a ghost and believing things that aren't true, since we've spent so many years doing that, and since we live in a world where there's 8 billion people under the spell, 8 billion people under the same spell that we're under, right? That makes it that much harder to break out of it, right? Because the people who are under the spell will say, what's wrong with you? What, are you crazy? What, are you going crazy? You stop going along with everything that's real, that's true, that we all believe in here. You stop believing that. You must be going crazy. See, it's got to be the opposite, right? Because if everybody's crazy and you start going sane, they'll think you're crazy. Everything's opposite. Everything's opposite. Yeah, but you know the reason that you're interested in going sane is because you have come to see the truth about your craziness. And you've come to see that the crazy is not going to go sane by itself. It's too crazy for that. It's not going to go sane by itself. You're going to have to leave it. You're going to have to vacate the situation. You're going to have to stop participating in craziness. And if you want to be sane, you have to stop participating in craziness. And the craziness that I'm talking about is what's going on in your mind. It's what's going on in your mind. I know that there have been days, just like you, when I wake up in the morning, right? It's like, there have been days that when I wake up in the morning, if I didn't know the difference between me and my mind, I would be like very depressed. Do you understand? Because if I didn't know the difference between me and my mind, what the voice was saying and what the body was feeling and what the emotions were saying was very uncomfortable. That's what happens, doesn't it? Yeah, and when that happens and you don't have an alternative, you're screwed. You just suffer. You just suffer. You know, maybe you take some pills or smoke a joint or drink a drink or whatever, or watch some more TV, whatever it is, right? But you see, instead of running from it, instead of distracting yourself, what if you just stare it down, look at it? Look at your fear, look at your anger, look at your mind. See what's going on there instead of allowing it to disturb you. It's like my friend up in Ithaca says, whatever you resist, whatever you reject, whatever you're not willing to allow to exist, you put it in a position for it to disturb you. Didn't you? Whatever you resist, whatever you're not willing to allow to exist, whatever you resist, whatever you reject, you create that whatever it is, you put it in a position to start disturbing you. And the more things you resist and the more things you reject, and now you have a whole collection of things disturbing you. No wonder when you wake up in the morning you want to go back to bed. But you see, if you understand the truth and you understand these teachings, you can wake up and have that negative voice, have those negative emotions, have whatever's going on in your physical body, and experience yourself as the awareness of that that's not affected by any of that. You can be aware of the discomfort, but you're not uncomfortable. You get the difference? And if you relate to it that way, where you're aware of it, but you're not in the middle of the storm, there's a storm, but you're not in the storm, right? If you relate to it that way, the storms will start to die down and disappear. Because their life depends on you. Their life depends on your involvement, your participation, your attention. You start to withdraw that attention from this mishigas, from this mess that keeps going on in the mind, right? The mess will just start to dissipate and die out, and it'll get replaced by reality. It'll get replaced by reality because it's the conditioning, and that conditioning took place when you were a midget and you didn't know shit. So how could you challenge it? How could you question it, right? You were a midget and you didn't know shit. And you were 100% dependent on the giants that you lived with taking care of you. Otherwise, they could starve you and throw you out. So you're not going to question anything. When you went to school, they didn't say, we're going to present you with a lot of information, and you can decide what of this information you want to believe and you consider to be the truth, and you can decide which of this information you don't think is true and you don't want to follow. They don't do that. They say, this is reality, this is true, and this is what you're going to learn. So you're presented with a one-dimensional world when you're a child, aren't you? There's only one truth when you're a child, and you're going to go to school and we're going to teach you that truth, and you're going to learn that truth, and you're going to live the life that that truth allows you to live, even though you're miserable. So thank God that the ancient traditions exist and that these traditions have maintained a clear enough understanding of the truth that got passed down for thousands of years that is still available. Thank God, because if we had to do this on our own and we didn't have that to depend on, I don't know. It would be hard to start from scratch when it comes to this stuff. But we don't have to. We have people that have gone through all this and come up with answers that can be depended on and practices that we can depend on. But they can't do the practices for us. All they can do is tell us about it and tell us that if you understand what's being said and if you do these practices, you'll experience freedom. And you'll be happy and you'll be peaceful. And if you don't, you won't. And even though that's presented to people that way, a large number of people reject it because it requires too much from them. I'm too busy. I'm too busy to be happy. I'm too busy to meditate. I'm too busy to understand the truth. I'll just keep making more money, and taking more drugs, watch more TV. Let's get more football. If we can get it on Thursday night, Monday night, Wednesday night, Saturday, and Sunday, then I can just be free. Right? Have you noticed the footballs are spreading out now? More football. More football. All right. Unless anybody has any questions, I'll let you go back to reality. Good luck.